Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmidty, Swanee and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. How was your week, Paul? And you were very quiet when I asked earlier.
I was. My week was good. I actually had a week at work that I didn't get yelled at by any grumpy customers. No one was in tears. It was actually quite a normal week. Haven't had one of those for a long time, so it's good.
Well, that is good. It's a little bit disturbing.
Yes. Oh, now
you're normal.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I think things are starting to slow down. Not slow down, normalise. Yes.
Excellent.
I did want to tell you a story if we can, but we could maybe do that once we've done our introductions and stuff. Did you hear about the crocodile attack during the week?
No,
well,
I didn't.
Just thought, given the chats we've had around alligators of late, it might be worth sharing the story of the crocodile attack in Queensland.
Absolutely.
I haven't heard about this at all. Wow. Okay.
I completely missed it. Oh, I forgot to say last week we had an event for work and a bunch of protesters decided to show up, which was great.
Was that the Daniel Andrews one in Bendigo?
Yeah,
Sorry, they at a work function they turned up. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we were launching the beautiful new facilities that we've had built with state government funding. And it was a wonderful event, except that we had, a bunch of kill the billers come along because they found out that Premier Andrews was attending. So I missed the whole event because I stood outside trying to make sure they were not going to storm the gates. But yeah, I suppose that was the high and low light of my week. So did you see it, Paul? Because I didn't see anything on TV.
Yeah.
I did say to one of the protesters, who was very nice, and I don't disagree with his choices, and I don't, have a problem with anyone's right to their voice. I just wish they'd had it on the steps of Parliament rather than at our lovely event, because it overshadowed this whole wonderful building and really good things for our community and economy. And unfortunately, anyone saw was about the protest. Never mind, shit happens. Anyway, what about your week, Carla?
I know I had a bit of a weird week. I think because I'd come back from holidays, I thought that life would be quite chill, and it was anything but. It was sort of like catching up on mothering and parenting, and we had women carnival, this, that one. Had a couple of dinners on, so we've had a busy week, but we've been on shark watch over here. It's all a bit sort of highly strung. We still have a shark sort of lurking about, so I've just had the kids at the beach, but we only go in the netted area. But yeah, if there's crocodiles happening in Queensland, it's definitely sharks in WA.
Yeah,
not nice. Not nice. But anyway, just to coincide with the start of summer, the weather's finally improved here at last. We've had so much bad weather, and now we're all waiting to be chomped.
You know what I say? You can go into the sea, but never go in further than your knees, because it's quite hard for a great white to come and chomp you.
There is apparently one story of someone
here tell me that
it did happen to, and that's
I'm never going to the water
in front of
that happened in Cottesloe Beach in 2000.
Oh my God!
21 years ago to the day for the guy last year, and it was a local mechanic father, and apparently
it is to the day.
It was to the day, 21 years to the day.
We
of
were
the gentleman who was, chomped last Saturday.
I think this is our probably most negative start of a podcast yet. Protesters, sharks. So should we introduce ourselves? And then Clarky can tell us the story of the croc. So I'm Schmidty.
I'm Swanee.
And I'm Clarky. And together we are Trial by Wine. So I could share with you a little story if you like, because we have been talking a lot about alligators, and we may have said things like a metre-long alligator is like a goanna or something like that in previous episodes. So anyway, During the week, there was a crocodile attack in the far north Queensland. So
you.
a 60-year-old man is recovering in hospital after being attacked by a saltwater crocodile during a fishing trip in far north Queensland. Cairns Hospital has confirmed that he's in a stable condition. The ABC understands the man was fishing on the banks of the McIver River last Thursday when his lure became stuck in a tree branch. He was trying to free the lure when the crocodile attacked and tried to drag him into the water. The man was able to grip onto a tree branch, reached for his knife, and stabbed the reptile in the head, which then let him go.
Dundee.
It's exactly what they said on the news during the week. It was quite funny. So a ranger subsequently interviewed the man over the phone. Oh, because he drove himself to hospital once. So he'd been attacked, dragged to the water, drove himself to hospital.
I sewed my own leg on, but you can patch it up a bit better when we get there.
That's right. He did have trouble with the clutch, but other than that, he was fine. So he said he was trying to shoo away a bull that was standing on the banks of the river so he could fish from that spot. He described grabbing a branch of a mangrove tree and holding on as long as he could while the animal attempted to pull him into the water by his boots. The man said that as he entered the water, he managed to retrieve his knife from his belt and stabbed the crocodile in its head until it let him go. He then scrambled at the bank and drove to Cooktown Hospital for treatment, where he was later flown to Cairns Hospital where he's recovering.
Oh, my word.
And the department said the crocodile will not be... They said the crocodile will not be targeted for removal due to the remote location of the property and lack of public access.
Just let him get on with it with a wound to his head.
How's that? I'm just going to go...
A girlfriend of mine posted a photograph I think her husband had taken, and it was a dugite, which I think, I could be wrong, because I don't ever remember hearing about them on the East Coast. I think it's a West Coast snake, but a big snake. There was a snake fighting, trying to eat a bobtail, and a bobtail is a big lizard. Anyway, so she posted this photo, and I was like, oh my God, I'm reticent to ask, but where is this? Because I think between sharks and snakes and it's a lot for me to carry. Like, I'm walking down the street with the dog thinking, what's going to come out of the bush? Then I get to the beach. It's like, I feel like I carry this as an Australian. I'm not entirely comfortable with this. And now you tell me this as well. It's like, oh God, you've got to be like Crocodile Dundee, ready to go, just in case, with your knife in your pocket.
That's right. Must have a knife at all time. Yeah.
I know. It is a lot.
When I lived in England, people always carried on about how dangerous Australia was because of our dangerous animals. And I used to say, I don't know what you're on about. It's perfectly safe. But perhaps something has changed. Maybe animals it's a take back strategy. And they've decided they've taken back Australia.
It certainly depends where you live. And like in the suburbia where I grew up, I don't remember it being such an issue. Oh my God, over here it feels like it's the last frontier. I don't know. There's a lot to worry about, and I feel like it's just in the back of my mind all the time, just waiting for something to reveal itself to me for me to freak out and think, oh God, yes, I was there all along. To be fair, I have seen nothing, but in my imagination, it's there ready to pounce or bite. You'd have a bit of activity on the farm, wouldn't you, Clarky?
All the time. We, there's often stories of snakes. We had a little one, probably about 2 foot long, maybe, red-bellied black snake that used to live under the house. We called him Bomber because he was black and red.
Go Bombers.
People said, you should kill him because otherwise he'll... I don't know what they were worried he was going to do, but we just felt we should just leave him alone and he'll be fine.
That's the right thing to do.
And he has been so far.
They're very shy, red-bellied black snakes. There's lots, you don't see them that often because they generally try to stay away from you. Yeah.
Yeah. He apparently too, if you've got red-bellied blacks, then you don't have browns. So.
Well, there's a little education with regards to the flora and fauna of Australia. That's right. They're always out to get us at all times. And that's why Australians have this joie de vivre, this joy of life. You could be eaten by a shark or a crocodile or bitten by a snake any moment. You name it. Even a kangaroo might come along and gut you.
Yeah. Or bitten by a spider.
I heard a terrible story about a kangaroo this week too.
Yeah.
I was just being facetious.
No, I know, but this is working quite nicely. So, dinner on Friday night with friends, and they play golf at a golf course in Perth, and I've been there with them, and there are kangaroos on the course, and it's all lovely until you see some of the big males come, because they're very that boxing kangaroo image. They're very intimidating. Anyway,
And they make that terrible grunt. They do that awful grunting at you.
She posted a picture of them having sex, but she said what I didn't show was, she said, there was a male having sex with a female, then another male came over. I'm a little bit confused as to who was holding the female, but I think it was the one who was actually having sex with her. He was holding the female kangaroo he was having sex with and punching the other male kangaroo. I'm like, again, where have I come back to? Why do I live in this country? I struggle with that. And I will definitely confirm that story, but I couldn't believe it when she was telling me at dinner. And she's Russian. Could you imagine seeing that? Oh, my God.
An Australian men have
I love that
reputation.
shit.
I know. Now we know where they get it from. You just stay there, love, while I give him a few quick...
I'll just put you in a headlock while I punch this bloke. And then we can go back to
I'm
it.
busy.
And I think that's like Perth's Premier Golf Club. That's a game and a show. It's like, it's a bit full on, isn't it? A bit spicy.
If it wasn't Perth's Premier Golf Club, it is now, with that kind of action.
Everyone will be out to have a look, see what's going on there.
They're wild animals and they behave quite aggressively at times. Yep. Again, for those...
Very intimidating.
If you visit, don't go up to a wild kangaroo and think it's going to be Skippy, because it's not.
Yeah. I think we've put every international listener off now. I think we've covered bats in the water. What about in the sky? Magpies? No. Anyway.
Weather's nice, apart from
Don't get started on spiders.
Don't start on spiders. Yeah. All right. So what are we drinking?
Would you like me to go first?
Go right ahead.
So, as true to form, remember how the other week we told you that we had all of these wine club memberships turn up?
Oh, yeah.
Well, yesterday we decided we'd go and visit a winery anyway and do some wine tasting. And so we went to Halden Estate and caught up with Tracy there. Halden Estate's a little boutique winery in Beechworth. They make an amazing Chardonnay, which we bought some of. But today we're drinking, because it's so cold, we thought we'd go with a Cab Sav from Halden. So it's called the Edgar Wallace. Edgar Wallace is the father of Tracy's husband, and he passed away a couple of years back, I think, 5 years back, and they scattered his ashes during amongst the vines. And so every bottle has a little bit of Edgar in it, which is kind of nice.
How far away is that from Indigo Valley?
About half an hour.
Well, that's close, isn't it?
It is close. Yeah.
I didn't realize I was trying to get my
wineries close.
Oh, is that one of the reasons why you live there?
The King Valley?
Correct.
Yes. No, that's another valley. So, yeah, there's lots of wineries in Beechworth, lots of wineries in King Valley, lots of wineries in Rutherglen.
Rutherglen's what I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of the more famous region. Yeah, Rutherglen. Oh, and you, Carla, what are you?
Oh, surprise. A big fat Diet Coke.
Oh, I was going to say a Ginger Ninja with Prosecco.
Oh, I haven't got myself organised. No, I'm in between taking children to the beach, whatever else. But no, I was promoting the Ginger Ninja last night to friends, actually saying that they've got to get it as well. So I just got to get organised.
I am drinking a lovely, very nicely chilled glass of Ninth Island Sauvignon Blanc, which is from a Tasmanian winery, which I have visited, and it is lovely.
Very nice.
Would you like to hear a little story?
Oh, yes, please.
I'd love to.
So, this case, guys, is a little different to our normal pick because it's unsolved. It's a mystery.
Oh, does that mean we get to, at the end, not only determine the punishment, but also determine who's guilty? Yes!
That's the idea.
Woohoo! Brilliant.
I think we should extend our remit to detective policing and prosecution.
Oh,
as well as jury.
Brilliant.
We're definitely going to be one that we're going to make up.
Okay.
So the sources for this story are...
Oh, that sounds a bit reputable. Hang on a tick.
Yes, it's a
Hold up.
story, so it's quite reputable.
Ridiculous. No,
Uh-oh.
but it's a reputable source. Like,
I know.
what?
I'm feeling
I'm sorry
feeling
about
uncomfortable.
that. I've let the side down, having a reputable source.
Could you at least search
You didn't
Lad
add
Bible
Bible?
to see if it's in there as well? Yeah.
It's a bit too big for Lad Bible, but I'll check it out later. William Shaw, Fraser Lurie from Classic Rock, Terry Rawlings, and Scott Jones, and Jeffrey Giuliano. And they wrote books on the topic.
When you say classic rock, is that like a radio station or something that
No, it's a magazine.
you got it from? But does that mean there's another musical story?
Yes, this is.
Yes.
It sounds like it's like the old person's, like if everybody else is reading Rolling Stone, but somebody's reading
Well, this story did
Classic
feature
rock.
Rolling Stone magazine as well.
classic rock.
Yeah, I did read it on Rolling Stone as well. So if you want to read more about it,
There you
can
go.
look it up there. So as per usual, I like to do a little bit of context. But this
Positively
is
highbrow.
Oh, it is. This is probably more of a Deirdre Chambers coinky dink than actual context because of the nature of it.
Oh, can we all just say it then? Can we all just say it?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Deirdre Chambers. What a coincidence. It's still funny.
This case is
We
about
need-
a founding member of a very exclusive club. Go on, Paul.
I was going to say we just need to find a little clip of Deirdre Chambers and put it in the show notes and perhaps on Facebook.
For all those people
When we lived
who
overseas
go, what the hell are they
And nobody
talking
knew what it
about?
was about. Exactly. It was just
Yes.
Jeremy and I would use it constantly. We'd be seeing someone who was perhaps married to someone else. They'd turn up with someone, and Jeremy and I would just discreetly say to each other, Deirdre Chambers.
Deirdre.
What a coincidence. Oh, and we just used to love it. It was like our little
So good.
inside wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We know what's going on there, and no one else would be any the wiser. Brilliant.
Love it. Love it.
All right. So today's case is about the death of a founding member of a very exclusive club. It's a club where every member has to be world famous, but has to leave all of their friends on joining. And it's not a cult. Any guesses?
World famous and has to leave their friends on joining, did you say?
Yeah.
When you died, you leave your friends.
When you die.
When
Yeah,
you die.
it's a death club.
Oh, how lovely. Is that like Nexium, only different?
Yes, it's a bit different. Just a bit.
Oh, I'm probably jumping ahead, so I might be
I'm
quite
sure you could be right. Go on. No, say it, Helen.
No, so could you just repeat what it was? You had to be world famous.
World famous, leave everyone else behind.
Okay, so you're just a world famous person who dies. Is there actually a club or no?
No, it's just a stupid phrase that someone coined.
Right. Okay, that's what I thought you meant. That's right. I'm clear.
Right. Now it's making sense.
So you know what I'm talking about, but you're not making a guess at it. Okay. It's the 27 Club.
Oh yes, I have heard of this.
Yeah.
I've not
All the people
heard
who died when
of
they
it.
were 27 years old.
Are you
that
joking,
right?
Clark? Are you pulling my dick?
I am not. I am
Sorry,
100% not pulling your dick, Veronica.
Oh my God. All right. So
What-
the 27
what is
Club, it was a phrase that was coined when Kurt Cobain died.
Yeah.
Because he was 27 years old when he died. But
Was he?
the person
There you
I'm
go.
about, yeah. So
I
was
can
Amy
see that Deirdre
Winehouse,
Chambers is coming in now.
Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and Jim Morrison all died at 27.
Who knew?
What a coinky dink. That's right. Deirdre Chambers.
Kurt Cobain. What a coincidence.
Exactly. Most of those people died, or their deaths involved drugs because drugs are bad kids. Although Amy Winehouse's death was attributed to alcohol poisoning. However, one of the famous
She may have
deaths-
dabbled.
Yeah,
May have dabbled.
The first
Unlikely.
ever. No, I know. Well, it depends on who you believe. First ever member of the 27 Club His actual official death, according to the coronial inquest, was death by misadventure. And this case has actually been reviewed 3 times by the British police in the 40 years since it happened, and the last one is 2009. So who is he? Lewis Brian Hopkins Jones, who went by Brian Jones. So let's call him BJ for short. Was born in Cheltenham on the 28th. Was born in Cheltenham on the 28th of February 1942, and in a town that was very similar to my old stomping ground of Bath, which was Cheltenham being a Regency city. A very pretty place.
Very nice.
Young BJ had an attack of croup at the age of 4, which left him with asthma that lasted for the rest of his short life. In fact, there's every chance that asthma was a factor in his death 24 years after that attack. BJ was a musical super talent, mastering reeds, recorder, harmonica, and even the harp. He had a restless mind and a seemingly bottomless talent.
I just love that someone's mastered the recorder finally.
Well, I certainly never managed to do so in grade 6.
He could totally play Mary Had a Little Lamb on it flawlessly.
He was very, very, very talented, but I'm guessing by your reactions that you didn't know what band he was in.
I can't recall, no, and I think I'm wrong.
Brian Jones was a founding member of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Right.
Who are they?
Yeah.
You mean the magazine?
There's actually a couple of pensioners these days.
Just if you walked in as generic.
Yeah, they're never going to make the 27 club. 2700 club, maybe.
27,000.
No.
Bill Wyman, the Stones bass guitarist, said after his death he formed the band. He chose the members. He named the band. He chose the music we played. He got us gigs. He was very influential, very important, and then slowly lost it. He was highly intelligent and just kind of wasted it and blew it all away.
Oh, blew it all away, like as in cocaine addiction?
I think he did everything.
Right.
So BJ was instrumental. Get it? Such numbers as A Satisfaction, Get Off My Cloud, Paint It Black, and Jumping Jack Flash.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he was a band member.
It's a gas.
From 62 to 69. And in that period of time, they actually had tons of hits. So it wasn't like a guy started with them and then left before they were famous. He was very much part of them when they were famous. On Jumping Jack Flash, though, I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'm sure you have. There was a film in the 80s with Whoopi Goldberg. It was such... I loved that film. And my favourite bit of it, I think, is when she's trying to work out the password. And she's listening to Jumping Jack Flash over and over again. She's like, Mick, speak English! Because she can't understand a word he's saying. And he's singing, I was proud and I crashed for a hurricane. And she's like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
That was a pisser. And the 2 other bits I like when she goes into the embassy and she does the Diana Ross. I need love to ease my mind. That's a classic. And then I have to say the disappointment when we finally see what Jack looks like right at the end of the film, and it's Jonathan Pryce, and his face does not fit his voice whatsoever. You know who Jonathan Pryce is, yeah? You know the High Sparrow who got toasted by Cersei in Game of Thrones in the Green Fire?
Ah, yes.
Oh. Yeah, that's Jonathan Pryce.
Yes.
Obviously much older.
Yes,
but
right.
So not I wouldn't say he was a amazing looker. It's a bit of a shame. Because, you build up, when you hear this voice all the way through it, you build up this idea of this gorgeous man, and then Jonathan Pryce walks in the room. Anyway.
Well, he might be gorgeous on the inside.
Oh, he's got a great voice too. Close your eyes and think of England, I guess. Anyway, in 1969, his bandmates had reached their limit with BJ's increasing drug use and erratic behaviour, and he was sacked from the Rolling Stones by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards.
If Keith Richards is stacking you, you must have a real problem.
Yeah, but this was quite early on. But I take the point.
I know.
I think I read somewhere that...
Keith Richards sacked him and then took up the baton.
Yeah, just took all of his drug hoard. and
Keith
started
Richards
taking
is
them
in
himself.
HR, worked it out people who need to be admonished for, unruly, what was it, sorry, misadventure.
Mm.
There are a couple of things that happened. Keith Richards actually stole Brian Jones's girlfriend.
Makes sense.
Well, she started going with him instead of Brian Jones because he was bad on the drugs. So there's a bit of bad blood there. And I seem to recall something about them needing to go to America or doing a tour in America, and there was an issue because of him being on the drugs, and so he couldn't do the touring because he was so out of control. And I think at this point they were massive, and there was a lot to do with why they just said he had to leave the band. So they agreed that
is it true that Perth's Premier Golf Course has footage of Keith Richards with his girlfriend in a headlock while he's punching Brian Jones?
Whilst having sex with her.
Well, obviously, because that's what you do at Perth's Premier Golf Club. You go on
Premier Golf Club, which I will not name.
No, but you go there to have
members
sex
or anything,
with
but I
people.
will not. Oh my god!
They actually don't. They don't even play golf there.
They just go for like dinner and a show.
Yes.
Kangaroo sexy time. Yeah.
Say perhaps not the Keith Richards and perhaps not the Brian Jones, but maybe we could just name those kangaroos Keith Richards and Brian Jones and leave it
I
at
like that. Yes.
Yes, and the girlfriend.
Oh, I can't remember her name. It's Annika or something like that. It starts with an A.
Oh, is it Anita
We'll just
Pallenberg
call
or
it.
something?
Yeah,
No?
that's it. Yeah.
Oh
and
my
then he
God,
stayed with her for 20 years. Yeah. Keith Richards stayed with her for 20 years. Yeah. That's her, yeah.
Jeez. You're now my like pop culture. What?
Oracle.
I can
She's
picture.
a-
I didn't know. I couldn't remember which one she was with, but I just know she's got that very blonde, maybe like a blunt fringe, and like she's super cool. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
She might still be alive.
So,
I think.
yeah. I think everyone except Brian Jones is still alive.
Oh no!
Okay.
Charlie died, remember?
Recently.
Charlie Watts?
Yeah, Charlie Watts died recently. Yeah,
What?
Yeah.
Charlie Watts.
Name the members of the Rolling Stones, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. That's about all I could do. And I couldn't spot Keith Richards in a lineup.
Oh my god, it's definitely her, Schmidty. Yes, Anita Pallenberg. She's a German model. Yep, that's the one.
it.
Got it right. Yep. Okay.
All right, so he's sacked. And then the agreement was he could announce his departure from the Stones in whatever way he saw fit. He retreated to his large country house called Cotchford Farm, which for those of us with a penchant for literary trivia was once owned by A.A. Milne.
Oh.
Nice. Pooh Bear? Is that Pooh Bear?
That's the
Correct.
one.
Yep.
That's the one. Yep.
Yes. I know so much.
Nailed it.
Nothing.
A.A. Milne had a house around the corner from us in London too. There was like, the little blue plaques they had, Schmidty?
Yeah.
At the same time,
I'm sure they would have had many, but there's one like, maybe they had like a city, what's hardly a city, a townhouse.
Within weeks of leaving the band, Brian Jones was found dead in his swimming pool.
it sounds like misadventure to me.
There were many conspiracy theories about Brian's death, including that he was killed by the royal family because he was having an affair with Princess Margaret.
Good old Margaret.
Jesus.
She was hot.
I think she was a goer.
Well, anyway,
Anyway.
certainly the actress is Vanessa Kirby who plays her in The Crown. She is gorgeous. Yeah.
I just wish she would. I just wish she'd hide cigarettes or store cigarettes in her bun. That would make her a lot
Her
more
beehive.
cool in her beehive.
What?
A
So
little
she
bit
looked
like
like Dot Cotton from EastEnders.
Well, I was thinking more like Patsy Stone. You know,
From Bing Bing and Bing.
just
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I am recalling Pats and her beehive full of cigarettes.
with cigarettes. Yeah.
Joints.
Correct. If he was the victim of murder or manslaughter, it was by forced drowning, but not by a royal hitman. Well, anyway, I won't even say that. I'll allow you guys to be the judge, jury, executioner, prosecution, police, the lot.
Challenge accepted.
By the way, you might think it wouldn't be too difficult a task to knock BJ off, given he was a major drug addict and alcohol consumer and had lifelong asthma, but then again, he was a really good swimmer. So what transpired on that fateful night? According to the Sussex police
Do
records,
tell.
I will. Jones's Swedish girlfriend, Anna Wallen, threw a small party with Frank Thorogood, Jenny Lawson, and Brian Jones. All three gave statements to police within 6 hours of the death, saying that Jones was drunk or had been drinking. Lawson said he had been taking sleeping tablets. They all said they independently left the pool and went to separate areas of the house minutes before he drowned alone. Frank Thorogood was a builder hired by Jones to undertake work on the house. In fact, he was staying at Jones's home with his girlfriend Janet Lawson, who actually discovered Jones's body in the pool. Apparently, it is common for those who work for the rich and famous to become hangers-on and to start to assume they're friends. Thorogood was allowed to throw parties at Cotchford and bask in the glow of the celebrity. On the day of Jones's death, he and Thorogood argued over a bill that the builder claimed Jones hadn't paid. Thorogood gave a newspaper interview in which he told the reporter he went for a cigarette, and when he went back to the pool, he saw BJ at the bottom of the pool. Now, the thing about that is it's the 60s, right?
So I'd go to have a cigarette somewhere else.
Correct. I doubt they had a designated smoking area.
It must be hard to give a BJ at the bottom of the pool too.
I think it's damn nigh impossible without drowning. So, like you, Carla, I thought it was very strange, but, you know, because let's face it, the only reason you would go somewhere else to have a cigarette is if you didn't have your darts on you at the time.
So he wasn't going off to the smoking nook.
Exactly. You could just go around the corner and stay away from everyone else in 1969.
Yeah. We don't want any secondhand smoke.
No, we don't. No. Anna Wallen was Brian. I don't know how much. There wasn't much passive going on around here. They were all in.
No, very aggressive. Aggressive drug use.
Correct. Anna Wallen was Brian Jones's girlfriend, and she told the coroner that an asthma inhaler was found at the edge of the pool. The day after Brian Jones died, the Daily Mirror dramatically published on the front page an article about it. And in the darkness beside a swimming pool early yesterday, she, Anna, tried to breathe life back into her pop star boyfriend. She failed. Minutes earlier, Anna, a 22-year-old Swedish student, had been swimming with Jones in the pool in his Sussex farmhouse. For a few minutes, she'd gone inside. She returned to find 27-year-old Jones unconscious.
Dead or unconscious? I feel like dead.
Unconscious. But
Was he at the bottom of the pool?
Yeah.
It's. I'm glad you asked that. There are multiple accounts. From what I can understand, he was at the bottom of the pool. Okay. The Mirror also said Anna went in.
The BJ was. Old mate said the BJ was at the bottom of the pool.
I believe that he sunk. You know, like when we talked about poor Marie Joseph. Pretty much you sink, and they come up later
for a couple of days.
Yeah. Well, in this case, no, they pulled him out pretty quickly, and the pool was clean.
True.
It's the one good thing we can say for it.
You can see the bottom.
You could. The Mirror also said Anna went into hiding 24 hours after failing to save Brian Jones's life. 30 years later, in a memoir, she blamed Frank.
Sorry, did you change names? And did you say Anita then?
No, Anna.
Oh.
The Mirror also said Anna went into hiding 24 hours after failing to save BJ's life. 30 years later, in a memoir, she blamed Frank Thorogood for killing Brian Jones, but that's not what she said to the police at the time. She also said that the Rolling Stones management really know what happened. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun. The Rolling Stones management, I feel like that's Keith Richards and Mick Jagger because they're the ones who sacked Brian Jones. Wouldn't you normally get management to do the sacking?
That's a really good question because I'm quite unclear as to who the Rolling Stones management were at the time. I've read multiple accounts. Another character who comes into it in a minute has been described as their manager, but I don't think he was. So it's all... I'm just not clear on who it is.
An awful...
We love theatrics. Yes. Now I'm in suspense. Do tell.
Tom Keylock was Brian Jones's driver and a fixer for the Rolling Stones. He was a paratrooper veteran.
A fixer. No, fixer's like a cleaner, I reckon. You know, like who cleans everything after a murder or makes problems go away.
Funny you should say that, Paul. Funny you should say that.
So he's already guilty in my eyes.
Isn't he the person who sort of does the dirty work, doesn't he?
Yeah. He
makes
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 go away.
problems
Yeah.
go away. Yeah, makes what they need to have happen, and gets rid of problems. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tom
Guilty.
Keylock was his driver. He was also a paratrooper veteran from the Battle of Arnhem in World War II. He says he was called to the scene to try to keep a lid on the situation. He was never formally interviewed by the police, but later claimed he had coaxed a deathbed confession out of his friend Thorogood.
Oh.
However, as you'd say, Paul, that's hearsay. So really it's up to us trial by whiners to decide if it's admissible or not. Oof, now the plot thickens. Janet Lawson was Tom Keylock's girlfriend and a 26-year-old nurse. And this is a bit that just does not add up for me. She was the first person...
A year away from joining the 27 Club.
Yeah. She was the first person to find Brian Jones dead at the bottom of the pool. So why did the paper say that it was Anna was trying to breathe life into him if Janet found him and was a nurse?
You wouldn't have been able to get him out, though.
No. She didn't. She couldn't get him out. For 40 years, she was considered to be the least important person at the cottage that night. But nearly 40 years later, in an interview with journalist and BBC producer Scott Jones, Janet gave more insight onto the events before and after BJ's death than the rest of the main players put together. And I will cover that soon.
Oh, what? Yes.
Alan Klein was an American businessman, music publisher, writer's representative, and record label executive. He was known for his tough persona and aggressive negotiation tactics, many of which affected industry standards for compensating recording artists. He didn't trust the Sussex police, so he undertook his own investigation using private investigators, and he concluded that Tom Keylock was the only suspect, even though he knew Keylock's claims to have heard Frank Thorogood's deathbed confession.
No way. There you go.
Yep. Even though he claimed to have known Frank Thorogood's deathbed confession.
Was anyone else there at the time? Was anyone else there at the time of the deathbed confession?
Oh, no, not that I'm aware of with the deathbed confession.
Yeah. Shock me.
Exactly. It's all very convenient, isn't it?
Guilty.
After interviewing Janet Lawson and Anna Boleyn, he was in no doubt that Keylock had done the dirty deed, but they were too scared of him to testify. So the two ladies were terrified of Tom Keylock.
Is the dirty deed the murder? Is the dirty deed the murder, or the getting your girlfriend in the headlock whilst you're having sex with her and punching Brian Jones in the head? Because that sounds like a dirty deed too.
It doesn't sound like the best deed, but it's not as dirty a deed as murder.
Yeah, it's not maybe it's just an unclean deed.
Messy.
Slightly soiled.
Yeah. Slightly soiled deed, that one.
A grubby deed.
It's a grubby deed. That's a good one. I like that. Grubby deed. Those kangaroos and their grubby deeds.
That's right. Those Perth golfers and their grubby deeds.
Just pervs, they are. And that does not reflect on Carla. Sam Cutler was the former tour manager for the Rolling Stones, who also pointed the finger at Tom Keylock. So now we've got two people who think he did
guilty. Order in the court. Order in the court. He's guilty.
He claims Keylock had admitted to him that he was there when Brian Jones died. Remember earlier he said he was there to call to the scene afterwards to clean it up.
Yep.
Not there when he actually died. So Cutler claimed Keylock acted suspiciously in the ensuing days, removing and destroying items from Brian Jones's diary. Brian Jones's fan
Items
club
from his diary?
Is that what I just said?
You don't have items in your diary. You have words in your diary and pages in your diary and stuff.
Liquid paper.
Oh, no, you're right. I don't even know where I got diary from. Cutler.
We don't have the script.
Right. What you meant is time capsule.
A man like that would keep a diary. I thought, God, if you had that off your face, why would you bother keeping a
I
diary?
have no idea where I got that from. It's not even on the page. It's not anywhere. I don't understand where I got diarrhea.
Oh no! Stop it. Ugh.
Oh, sorry. No, he claimed Keylock acted suspiciously in the ensuing days, removing and destroying items from his house. House, not diary.
Oh. Okay.
Sorry,
I'm glad I question everything I say.
Quite right. His fan club chairman, obviously someone going to believe it, Trevor Hobley, published a claim that a neighbour saw a large bonfire on Brian Jones's property on the morning after the drowning. Cutler said, "My gut feeling is that he was ripping Brian off on some level or another." He said that both Wallen and Lawson were terrified of Keylock, who had threatened them with violence. Cutler was the person who organised Wallen's escape to Sweden. However, he also thought it'd be a good idea to have the Hells Angels control security at the Ultimate Speedway Free Festival concert in New York, just 4 months after Brian Jones died. That ended up with an angel murdering a crowd member on camera and right in front of Mick Jagger as the band played Under My Thumb. So maybe he's not the best person to rely on for decision making.
Oh my God, what?
Yes, it's another scandal / story, but from memory, a man in the crowd climbed up on a speaker and the Hells Angels had been organised to be security. And I'm not quite sure why, whether it was a PR thing or it was cheap labour. Anyway, this guy climbed up on a speaker, may or may not have been on drugs, and pulled a knife or something, or that's the allegation anyway, and we're not really sure. So I can't remember the actual details, so I'm not really telling the story properly at all, but the man was killed by the Hells Angels, and no one was prosecuted for it, and it would appear that a pretty innocent man was killed completely unnecessarily. And it was caught on camera, but it was quite fuzzy, I think, so hard to tell what was really happening.
God.
Yeah, I'll have to research that properly and tell the story more efficiently or properly.
No, I think it sounds good. I feel like old mate jumping on speakers deserves to be murdered on camera, you know. It's just unnecessary. I'm still struggling with the whole thing about Anna Waller.
Anna.
And escaping to Sweden. Isn't that where she was from? Is that also called returning home?
Yeah. There was a thing in the paper about her going to hiding. So I think she disappeared back to Sweden to avoid the press or coverage. Yeah.
Also may have been traumatised.
It just went home. Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, hang on. I'll do it for you.
Yeah, can you? Yes, because going home is not melodramatic. Escaping back to Sweden is more the tone that we're looking for, isn't it?
Precisely.
Or as Carla would prefer, I'll do this one for you, Carla. I got this one. Ready? Oh.
Hey! Yeah! Heinous.
My favourite.
Oh, it just keeps playing.
Thank you for
Can we
doing
all
that to me.
Can we all say heinous now?
Even my kids love that noise.
Oh, yeah, heinous crimes. Heinous.
Yeah, heinous. It's the only time I would ever use that word. Heinous.
Heinous crime. All right, sorry. Back to this guy. So,
Yes.
there were a couple of quite credible investigative journalists and authors who have looked into this. 2 books about the drowning were published in 1994. One by Jeffrey Giuliano, one by Terry Rawlings. In 2004, a second edition of Rawlings' books was published, and in 2008, there was an account of an interview between Scott Jones and Janet Lawson, who hadn't spoken publicly about the drowning for nearly 40 years. And before you interrupt me, I'm just going to remind you, she was a trained nurse.
Yes.
So remember before when Anna was reported as in the mirror as trying to resuscitate him, why didn't the trained nurse try and do that? Not the 22-year-old Swedish model. Okay, Paul, go ahead.
I just want Rawlings' book to be called Tone, so it can be Rawlings' Tone. And it could be an investigation into how Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones died.
Escape
Sorry,
Story.
By Rolling Stone.
I just couldn't get Rolling Stone. Sorry,
Cracker.
I had to get that out of my head. It was just bouncing around in my head. Now I can listen again.
You can move on now.
It's all right. So
Yes.
Jeffrey Giuliano, who is also a well-known music industry author, concluded that Brian Jones's death was the result of Tom Keylock calling the shots from the side of the pool while the others held Brian Jones under.
Oh, but why?
So there's
Jeepers.
some argument that it was just skylarking. By the way, guys, if next time I'm at your place and we're in your pool, no skylarking. Skylarking is not to be had. In fact,
no
it's like one of those
skylarking.
signs.
No to roughhousing?
no diving, no skylarking,
No
no
skylarking.
bombs.
No
I like the
misadventures.
term they use in The Simpsons where they call it roughhousing. No roughhousing.
Roughhousing.
So Giuliano thinks it's manslaughter at worst, but not murder.
I feel like he just said that it was murder.
No, he said it was skylarking. So they just held him head under the water just that little bit too long. But even so,
I don't.
But old mate's calling the shots.
none of it makes any sense. There are so many contradictions in this
Right.
story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dun,
Rolling
dun, dun.
Hang on.
Oh, whoops.
Heinous.
Rawlings interviewed Keylock and wrote a book about what he thinks really happened. In the 2004 book, oh, far out, I'm doing it again.
Tone. In the 2004 book Tone.
Here we go.
Terry, it's Terry.
No, it's Rawlings Tone.
Oh.
Rolling Stone.
Rolling Stone claimed that Keylock told him that Thorogood had confessed to him, saying, "It was me that did it. I just finally snapped." And remember, this was after Brian Jones had allegedly argued with him about an unpaid bill. So Thorogood allegedly confessed to the murder to crazy Keylock.
Yeah.
Goes the other prime suspect. Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Keylock told Rawlings, "What people
How
don't know,
convenient.
what people don't know is that very strong hash cakes were made. That's why they were all stoned and they didn't know what day it was." Janet told me she didn't remember anything as she was off her head. They all were. I was the only one who wasn't stoned. Remember, he also said he wasn't there till later. He said he was called to help contain the situation. Strangely enough,
Hash cakes.
Strangely enough, Keylock had a brother who was a senior Scotland Yard CID officer.
Ooh.
He told Rawlings that his brother told him BJ's investigation was a cover-up because of mistakes by local police. Keylock said, "I think the police want to make manslaughter charge, but they were told to forget it. The only one who could possibly have been charged was Frank Thorogood because he was the only one in the pool. But the police said, just forget it. The orders came from the very top not to pursue it anymore, and it was never pursued after that." So,
That's
investigative
suspicious.
journalist and BBC producer Scott Jones, no relation to Brian Jones, has had, or Tom, that's
Or
right.
Tom.
Well, maybe he is related. We just don't know.
Or my friend
Probably not
Margaret Jones.
Maybe Tom. Yeah. He has had the latest and perhaps most powerful insight into how Brian Jones died. In an interview with Janet Lawson, remember the nurse, he also interviewed the 4 policemen involved in the investigation. Lawson said, "The police were trying to put words in my mouth." She said she was exhausted after being questioned to 4 or 5 in the morning, so she asked if she could come back and give another statement later that day with a clearer head. They said she could, but
What?
asked her to sign for what she'd given them so
That
far.
seems normal.
She thought they'd call her back, but they never
that's
did.
not
Right.
What?
What?
Jones's, yes, the
Hang
plot
on, so
thickens.
she wants to go so she can come back with a clearer head and give another statement. They never called her back. She never wanted to go back in and correct her muddled statement. Sus.
It seems that she and the other woman, Anna, were frightened of Keylock. So she probably just thought, look, they didn't call me back, I'll let it go.
I'm going to escape to Sweden with Anna.
No, she didn't. At the time of Jones's death, Janet had claimed that she was at his house because she had decided to spend a few days in the country. In fact, she told Scott Jones that her boyfriend, Tom Keylock, had asked her to go to keep an eye on Brian. She said there was something in the air. Frank was acting strangely, throwing his weight around a bit.
Is that what Fernando was written about? There was something in the air?
Something in the air, that's
That
right.
night, the stars were bright. Fernando. Brian Jones.
Poor Brian Jones. After everyone ate dinner, Lawson said Thorogood was larking about with Brian Jones in the pool. After a while, when Brian Jones was in the pool alone, he asked her to find his asthma inhaler. Lawson said she looked by the pool, then the music room, the reception room, and then the kitchen. She said Frank came into the kitchen in a lather. His hands were shaking. He was in a terrible state. I thought the worst almost straight away and went to the pool to check.
Well, wasn't the asthma pump found by the pool?
Correct. Plant.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Key evidence happening right there.
She continued, when I saw Brian on the bottom of the pool and was calling for help, Frank initially did nothing. I shouted for Frank again as I ran towards the house, and he burst out of it before I reached it, ran to the pool and instantly dived in. She told Scott Jones that she wondered how Thorogood knew Brian Jones was at the bottom of the pool. Lawson ran back to the house and tried to call the police, but Anna Wallen was on the phone and wouldn't get off it.
Someone's died, but I'm talking to my friend.
I'm sorry, I've called Sweden. I can't afford to call from my own home, so...
Yeah.
I have Stockholm on the line.
That's right.
Yeah.
Go away, I'm busy.
And it's between 5 and 6, and that's when calls are cheap. So come back after 6 and you can call the police.
Trunk calling, is that what they used to call it?
Yes.
They did.
Reverse charge.
Yeah, that's when you...
Okay.
That always involved an elephant.
I don't understand why she wouldn't get off the phone. Lawson told Scott Jones that it was her guess.
It's a little bit like... It's a bit like my sister who used to talk on the phone for like 2 hours. So my
You're
sister
hogging
is
the
deaf,
phone.
and they brought out these things called TTYs, and so it was like a little keyboard, and you would attach the phone to it, and you'd type, and your friend who had one would type, and up would come the words on the screen, so you could just talk to each other. This is in the, I don't know, mid-'80s kind of thing. And so she would spend hours TTY talking to her friends. And I feel like if I had have come in saying someone's drowned in the pool, I need to ring the police, she would have said, I don't give a fuck because you get to talk to your friends all the time. I'm deaf. I can't talk to my friends all the time, so you just have to wait for me. That's probably the same thing that Anna was going
Were you the little brother?
Yeah, 100%.
She'd be like, bugger off.
Exactly right.
Bugger off.
Yeah.
Get
Someone's
out.
died.
Or tell Mum. Yeah.
Yeah, how many people have died? Mum would have said, leave your sister alone. She doesn't get much time to talk to her friends.
Exactly. Just let it be.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But
Mum,
someone's
there's
died.
someone at the
I
bottom
don't
of the
care. Yeah, that's right.
He's on the phone. Respect her space. Give her some time.
That's right. Yes. Just be patient.
Sorry,
Well, that
Schmidty.
is, I think, precisely what happened here, because Anna was like, I'm Swedish. I'm not deaf. I'm Swedish.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Anna, it's your boyfriend who's on the bottom of the pool. Yes, but I'm on a call. I mean...
But I'm on my Swedish TTY.
Lawson told Scott Jones that it was her guess that Thorogood had not intended to kill Jones, but his death was probably the result of horseplay that had got out of hand.
Horseplay?
Not
Yes, so now I've got
skylarking.
horseplay,
Were there any-
skylarking, shenanigans are probably next.
Shenanigans, I reckon. I just want to know, was there a horse in the backyard at all, or were there any hoof prints?
Oh, I don't think that, but this was such a botched investigation. I don't think anyone even looked for
Terrible.
hoof prints. Sorry,
Horse-
That would have ruled out horseplay, wouldn't it?
I think we've got another case of the defective detective here.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. There were only 4 of them, so you know.
Yeah, exactly. Scott Jones also interviewed the policeman on duty that day. PC Albert Evans was the first officer on the scene, arriving as ambulance crews tried to resuscitate Brian Jones. He searched the house and
Did he arrive on horseback? Because that would have ruined the evidence of any horseplay.
You're right. Maybe
You're
that's
right.
why they didn't
Maybe
check.
that's why they didn't check.
That's why they didn't. Yeah, exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
Good chat.
Curious.
Oh, it's hailing
Hailing
outside now.
Oh.
Yeah, and I thought I was going
I
to get
can
the
hear
noisy weather. So he searched the house and took possession of a number of bottles of spirits and various bills. Okay, here's another complete discrepancy. PC Albert Evans, most English name ever, said his early impression was that there were initially more people around than the 3 witnesses represented in their official police file. So you know how you said earlier whether or not there were more people? I thought that's what you're talking about. I thought, wow, you're psychic. So there's a Netflix program that actually suggests that there are at least a dozen people there at the time. Not just 6.
But we
Well,
have
it's
no
quite
idea.
an
Intimate crowd for a rock star who has hanger-oners. Do you know what I mean?
Isn't
It
it?
seems very
Mm.
small.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's
Even
all a
I
bit
thought that at
odd.
the beginning, but
Yeah.
Wouldn't happen at one of your
yes,
parties, hey, Carla?
never. You've always got the hanger-oners.
That's right.
And everybody knows all these people, have so many people on their payroll. Everybody's hanging around for, a bit of stardom, a free feed, accommodation. Everybody's in for what they can get. So to be unlikely that
Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine there'd be many nights when there were 4 people at that house. There's probably parties every night with lots of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree entirely. So he guessed some sort of altercation, drug-induced, alcohol-induced. He noted Frank Thorogood was the one who had been in the pool with Brian Jones. He admitted there was nothing at the time to connect Thorogood directly, just feelings. Feelings. Nothing more than feelings.
Feeling.
That can be quite connecting, though, can't they? Feelings.
They can. They can indeed. Evans was sure that Bob Marshall, the chief investigating officer, had the same feeling, but he was more certain about it than Evans. However, Evans did write a letter to the Sussex Chief Constable in 1994 saying, I personally was not convinced that we were given the correct story as put forward by Thorogood. So we've got Keylock saying Thorogood did it.
We've got some policemen saying
there were more people there and that no one's telling the truth.
Had done it.
Evans was never asked to attend the original inquest, so he didn't get to express his policeman's instinct, otherwise known as feelings. Nothing more than feelings.
I think that's what they teach.
Policeman's instinct.
Policeman's
Yeah. Are policeman's instincts any different to anyone else's instincts?
They're deeper.
Dun-dun.
They're sung by Barbara Streisand.
That's right.
Exactly.
Play that sound effect. Dun-dun. That's it.
Another policeman on the scene in the early hours of July the 3rd was Drug Squad Officer PC Mike Harvey, who found 5 capsules of Durafet and amphetamine, known as black bombers, in Thorogood's coat. Thorogood told Harvey, I look after them for Brian so he won't take too many at a time. That's interesting because that would have constituted unlawful possession, however no charges were laid. He was only cautioned.
I feel like the fixer would have carried the drugs anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm still not sure when the fixer arrived.
Hang on, so Thorogood, not the fixer, had the drugs.
The builder had the drugs.
Yeah.
Oh.
Scott Jones interviewed Harvey, who told him a caution was unusual in those days because the police were trying to stamp down hard on drugs. But Detective Chief Inspector Bob Marshall decided that it shouldn't be followed up. DCI Marshall later denied to Scott Jones that he knew anything about the drugs. What drugs? What are you talking about? Harvey said when he met Sussex Police Chief Constable T.C. Williams at 9 a.m, he started to brief him what had happened, but he was already aware of the details of the case. Clearly someone else had already briefed him, and Harvey clearly thought it may have been DCI Marshall. Harvey's statement on the day was never presented to the coroner.
What?
I know,
It is
it's
baffling.
baffling.
It's very defective. Defective
Inspector Stuart Booth was the officer that prepared media briefings for the Sussex Police each time the case was revisited, and he told Scott Jones that he thought it very strange that Harvey's account was never given to the coroner. Booth said, I would have expected it to have gone before the coroner and people would have asked Frank Thorogood what drugs he gave to Brian Jones, how many, when, times and dates, where he got the drugs from, and did he give any other unlawful drugs to Brian Jones on that night, bearing in mind the toxicology report showed there was an unidentified purple spot on his liver.
Does that even mean?
What even is that? Is that cancer?
I have no idea. It was just a purple spot. The liver was also twice the size of a normal liver.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's probably more important.
That could be why he
It's probably
died.
cirrhosis of liver, yeah.
Was it his liver was like a powerlifting liver because it had
It
Yes.
had so much work to
Alcohol.
do. Yeah.
it was like an uber
It took
liver.
lots of
Yeah.
steroids.
Woo! We can carry the weight of all this abuse. We'll just double in size.
Or maybe it just had mercurochrome on it. The purple spot could have just been mercurochrome. Do you remember that?
Like a cutter abuse.
Yeah.
Your whole scab would disappear, but
Absolutely.
you'd still have this red spot on you from the mercurochrome, yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard the word scab for such a long time. It's nice to hear the word scab. It does bring you back to childhood, doesn't it? A mercurochrome
Oh.
scab. Oh,
just
good
reminds
times.
me of all those hangers on that ask you for money that BJ must have seen plenty of. His
That's
scabs.
right. Scott Jones met another Sussex officer who cannot be named, but who knows the case well. That officer made claims about how Anna Wallen's statement had been produced. Wallen had been given sedatives by the doctor and had to be actually woken up during the interview. The officer said that the woman the woman detective constable who wrote that statement was told what to write by Bob Marshall. Bob Marshall was controlling it. The evidence that was written down, he was pushing the buttons. The officer told Scott...
This is crazy.
It's so bizarre. The officer told Scott Jones that a detective chief inspector would not push the buttons without an order from above to do so, meaning the chief constable must have been given the instructions to leave out the drugs. When Scott Jones interviewed Marshall on the telephone, he said he kept a detailed file on the case, despite retiring in 1974. Reading from a letter he'd written to an author researching a book on the subject, Marshall read from the letter on the following. On the evening in question, Jones was in a farmhouse with some 6 associates, all of whom
At the
were
fun
entertaining
house.
themselves. That's right. All of whom were entertaining themselves in their own way and with little concern for me.
Oh, stop it. Entertaining themselves in their own way. It just sounds like they're all in the corner masturbating or something.
Masturbating,
It's
I know.
terrible.
And with very little concern for each other. I know. It's a strange way of saying something, isn't it?
We're at the fun house entertaining ourselves in our own way with very little concern for each other. What?
You know what
Carla,
BJ
that wouldn't
says?
happen at your parties, would it?
This used to be a
certainly
fun
hope
house, but now it's full of evil clowns.
Yes, exactly.
Correct.
Evil masturbatory clowns.
It's just such a
Goodness.
weird turn of phrase, isn't it?
It's so
That's
bizarre.
terrible.
Yes.
Because I don't know if I'm led to believe that they're off doing drugs individually or, with a partner or whatever else, or if, they're having sex, perhaps more orgy. I mean, I don't know what to think. And that's the whole idea. I think you're just supposed to not know.
I reckon.
Yes, it's been left open to interpretation.
It's a loaded term.
Mm.
I think it's probably like they were doing interpretive dance, Kate Bush, Wuthering Heights style.
I love it.
At the fun house.
Kate Bush.
That would be good. Heathcliff, it's me, it's Kathy. I've come home. I'm so cold. Let me in your window. Anyway.
He's so cold because he's dead at the bottom of the pool. That's the problem.
Ooh, let me have it. Let me grab your soul away. Ooh.
I'm so
Let me
impressed you
have
know all the words. I only know Heathcliff, that bit.
I absolutely
Very
love that
amazing.
song. I do it top to
I
bottom.
do
and
like her.
I won't torture anyone else further with it. Right, so they're all on the drugs, right? And they're all drinking. and it was very difficult to get a precise account of what was going on. So, according to police, after carrying out what was very thorough investigation, I was satisfied that this unfortunate death was accidental, and at no time did I discover anything to warrant consideration of taking criminal proceedings against this person. He reveals that there were more than 3 witnesses at the scene. Given that no attempt was made to trace the people who left, this would seem to call into question his claim to have carried out a thorough investigation. In fact, there's no evidence anywhere that other witnesses were questioned again when they sobered up, and given that Thorogood was found to be in unlawful possession of drugs and admitted intending to supply them, there was clearly something to warrant criminal proceedings. The whole thing's whack. Marshall also maintained that Thorogood was never a suspect. He didn't have it in him to be violent. Now, I would like you to please remember this. He didn't have it in him to be violent. But his recollection seems to be at odds with the memory of P.C. Evans and of Thorogood himself, who admitted on BBC's Crime Watch program in the 90s that police had told him they came close to charging him the night Jones died. When Marshall was asked, his line was the same: "I'm satisfied the coroner's verdict was true and proper." The next bit is interesting, though I'll leave it to you to decide if it's in any way connected to the case. In the course of his research, Scott Jones came across a startling and previously unpublished report buried in a police file. It mentioned a murder attempt on Mrs. Joan Fitzsimmons, who had an on and off again affair with Thorogood. Fitzsimmons drove for her family's taxi company in Chichester, West Sussex. She had driven BJ and Keith Richards quite often and occasionally stayed with Thorogood at Cotchford Farm. She was also friends with Janet Lawson. Indeed, it was Joan who introduced Lawson to Tom Keylock. On July 26, 1969, approximately 3 weeks after Brian Jones's death, Jean Fitzsimmons was the victim of vicious assault which had left her in a coma with a fractured skull and a lifetime of blindness. Her boyfriend...
My God.
Yeah. 3 weeks after Brian Jones dies, she gets attacked. Her boyfriend, Michelle Ziade, pleaded guilty to the attack and spent 4 years at Broadmoor Prison before being deported back to Jordan. Scott Jones sought details through the Freedom of Information Act, but the request was rejected because it contained sexual details that could embarrass the living. However, they released the details when Scott Jones provided Jones' death certificate in 2002.
I'm going to call her Gene Simmons, the lead singer of Kiss.
However, they released the details when Scott Jones provided Gene Simmons' death certificate in 2002. It turns out that Frank Thorogood was the primary police suspect until his wife and 2 friends said he was with them. Joan's brother, John Russell, said that Joan had told him that Thorogood was very persistent on getting back together with her, and Frank himself had told Russell that Joan knew a lot about the Rolling Stones that should never get out.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Nice.
You're right.
Oh,
it really does call for this one.
Yes.
So where does the
Yes,
Paul
that's
Jordanian
it.
bloke factor into it?
Well, you say bloke, but his name's Michelle, so...
What was that, Shady?
The poor Jordanian bloke, otherwise known as the supposed attacker,
Old mate Michelle.
Michelle always said he didn't attack Joan. The police case against him recorded that his motive was a complete mystery.
You were just an immigrant. You were foreign, so that'll do us for now. You're Jordanian.
You were transgendering, and the drugs were bad, and they made you do strange things.
I don't even think this man was on drugs. He was just some poor innocent.
No,
Yeah.
No. I don't even think this man was a man. His name's Michelle.
Was the lady who was attacked, she was having an affair, was she, with Thorogood? Yes.
With Frank Thorogood,
Right.
who apparently didn't have it in to be violent. That's why I made a fuss about it.
Okay, but his wife and whatever, sister, whatever, they were his alibi.
Yes, they alibied him, but we don't know if that's true or not.
Okay.
So that's the case of Brian Jones. A mystery, or is it? All All right, we hope you're enjoying our show. We'd love it if you would follow and like us on our Facebook page at Trial by Wine and share with all your family and friends. Help us get to 2,000 downloads by the 30th of January 2022 by giving us a 5-star rating, as it helps spread the word. We can't thank you enough for your support. Now back to the show.
Yes, exactly.
I did think at the beginning we were going to do all the members of the 27 Club, which might take a bit of time. I've now realised they're focusing solely on BJ, but I'm good now.
Yeah, no, we were just doing Brian Jones because he's the connective tissue of the theme.
When you're investigating crimes, I mean, there's lots of things that happened sort of like the late 60s, early 70s, when people were really, really, well, excuse my French, but drug fucked, because all these new drugs were out and about and everyone was sort of trying them. So they were, I mean, I use the word pickled, but they were far worse than pickled. I usually use that in drinks a lot. But imagine trying to work out what the hell happened in a lot of these different times with these musicians, whatever else. These people were just everyone's just a mess. Everyone's trying to stay in good with the right people. I mean, for all we know, the police could have been total star fuckers themselves and wanting to be involved.
Exactly.
And, they were probably big fans of the Rolling Stones. It would be so hard to get to the actual truth because, weird.
I reckon you're right. And so I think some of the...
I'm just going to go a step further, Paul. Just hold that thought. The coroner's report basically said that he had sleeping pills, PEP, alcohol, and this spot on his liver. But it didn't say he died of heart failure, and it doesn't specify that he died from drowning. Normally there's been water in the lungs. It's just weird that they call it death by misadventure and not death by drowning. That's the odd thing. The whole thing is really odd.
Confusing, isn't it?
I was wondering about what Carla was saying with the evidence and trying to pick through all of the, drug-fucked witness testimony, because I'm sure there were things like it wasn't horseplay, but there was definitely a unicorn in the corner. And then I do recall the Grim Reaper descending from the sky. And, there'd be all that stuff that you just know is not fact. But somewhere in their drug-fucked testimonies there would be fact, and trying to plot that out on a whiteboard would just be an absolute nightmare.
And I can't believe that there wasn't any sign of magic mushrooms and stuff like that.
No, well, there was hash cake.
Hash cake, but no mushies.
That's true. No mushies.
Because that would have, put him to the bottom of the pool for sure.
Yes, as would have lead weights.
Oh, yeah.
But the
Or
autopsy
multiple
just
people
said,
holding his head under the water.
Correct, yes.
So what? I don't know, Schmidty. So the autopsy. So what is? I know it's death by misadventure, but does it say what the cause of death is? Am I missing that, or do you just, because they sort of list the issues that he had? This is what was found, but they're not conclusively saying it's one thing.
From what I've read, all the autopsy said was that he had an amount of drugs and alcohol in his system. He had this purple spot on his liver, and his liver was twice the size it should have been.
But there was no sign of a struggle. There was no violence.
No, there's no sign of violence.
They don't think that he was held under the water.
Well, the autopsy doesn't say that there's any sign of struggle or violence. However, there are some conspiracy theories, which I alluded to at the beginning.
Right.
So, while you guys think it through, let me ask you some questions. If the policeman who said there were more than the reported witnesses was correct, that's mysterious. Who were the other people who were there at the time? Why is there a seeming cover-up? If it was just the local builder who killed him, why did they cover it up, and why did he get off with the drugs?
Can we just explore who the other people might have been?
Mm.
I think we should give some answers as to who the... No, but I feel like Deirdre Chambers would have been there.
Yes, she was there. Why the statement about the management? Was the band's manager at the time there, or were the other missing three maybe members of the band?
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun! Yeah.
There are lots of conspiracy theories, but this one got my attention. It's a ridiculous stretch, but you said something about unicorns before, and I thought it was funny. The Rolling Stones' increasing darkness at the time and their album Their Satanic Majesty's Request encouraged a few to go full Rosemary's Baby. Jones was killed as a ritual sacrifice. The evidence? Jones's last photo session with the Rolling Stones became the cover for their album Through the Past Darkly, Big Hits Volume 2, which came out in September 1969. Brian's image is completely shattered in the back cover where the mirror cracks. He is also the right bottom of the 5-pointed star configuration the band is laying on. On the insert photo. And we all know what a 5-pointed star configuration is, don't we? It's a pentagram, a sign of satanic ritual.
Oh.
Deirdre Chase? Coincidence? Or maybe it was just a tribute to him.
I just love that you said Brian Jones was a right bottom. That's such an English way of saying you're an ass.
You're such an
I didn't say that. I said he was on the right bottom.
Oh, it's a right bottom.
He's the right bottom of the 5-star, yes.
That's right, yes.
Correct, yes.
Oh, Brian, you're a right bottom.
Look, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but his ex-girlfriends did say he was a bit of a shit. So you're right, he was right bottom. Okay, so do you guys want to think about that some more while I tell you my sentencing and my view? Or do you want to do some more exploration?
So I've got a theory. I don't know if you want to hear it, but anyway. So I mean, there are drugs involved clearly, and so you have to kind of suspend reality a little bit to get through this, but bear with me. So I feel like Anna could breathe underwater. I don't know whether she had gills. The girlfriend of BJ.
Yep. Swedish girlfriend.
Swedish girlfriend who escaped to Sweden. She could breathe underwater. And so she was giving Tom, is it Tom? The suspect, the fixer?
Thorogood.
What was it? No, not Thorogood, the other one. Helock. So she was... Yeah, so she was giving him a BJ underwater because she can breathe underwater, so that's easy to do. And then BJ actually came out and saw Anna giving Keylock a BJ at the bottom of the pool and started to jump into the pool and start a fight. So Keylock thought that he got Anna in a headlock to start punching Brian. Remember, he's probably on drugs too. And thought, well, I can just hold Anna in the headlock underwater for as long as I want because she can breathe underwater. But actually, because of the drugs, he'd grabbed BJ and got him in the headlock and was holding him underwater whilst punching Anna, and then did it for too long. And because BJ wasn't Anna, he couldn't breathe underwater, and so he actually drowned through that unfortunate incident. That's what I think happened. It was all a misadventure. It is trial by wine, and we do not need fact.
No, never let that be before the topic story. Right, well, the things like the two tenets I keep coming back to are drugs and also this sort of idea that people need the person who is the star or the person in power, which is BJ in this case, obviously. They're better off with him being alive than dead, I think. Although he had just left the Rolling Stones, but it was so fresh. It was only weeks afterwards, correct? Yeah, so they wouldn't know that the Rolling Stones would go on to be the most incredible thing ever. They would still think that, yeah, exactly. So he's already such a huge star. So I'm in sort of two minds. I kind of think, look, I think that they were also drug-addled, that it could have easily just happened and no one would have known what was going on because they were all just in, their own little universe, absolutely drug fucked.
Entertaining themselves independently with
exactly
disregard for those around them.
Whatever that's supposed to mean.
Yeah.
Yes, I know that has been quite on a lot of the turn of phrase. It's like of the time. It's like, oh, they were skylarking. Oh, they were, what was the term? Sorry,
they were wuthering heightsing, I think, is the new term that we've come up with.
There was a bit of horseplay.
There was definitely horseplay.
Yes, Misadventure.
Horsing around.
But I think there was a lot of Wuthering Heightsing.
I think for someone like Brian, who clearly was, at a point where the drug use was sustained and probably not, it's not like dabbling and, isn't this a little bit of a giggle? Let's have a little bit of a line of Coke and have a little bit of a jolly old time. I think it'd be a little bit darker than we possibly think, when you think, it's a rock star's party. But, if you're doing drugs all the time, it's not nice, I wouldn't think. So maybe it was a bit more morose than we realised, and maybe it was just a bit of a mess and ended up, being a nightmare and fell into the pool.
No.
If I thought anyone was potentially responsible, the only thing I can come back to is the builder and the money, but that he thought he was owed. But I just think he would have thought he'd get more if we had him around. I don't think murdering him was going to sort of really achieve what he wanted. And he wasn't violent. If he did, there's no signs of violence.
Well, unless he.
Yeah. But
if he wanted him dead, murdering him would have achieved.
You're not going to get the money
surely.
if he's dead. You know what I mean? If it's all about money, yeah, you'd be angry. So I'm more inclined to believe that he did do the thing to the girl, if that feels like a bit of a cover up. But if you can't show me any signs of violence against Brian, then I was getting the impression that the builder would have been, it would have been there would have been a struggle or something. I mean, what did he do? Just trip him over and he fell into the pool and that was the end of that? If he was a great swimmer, I just think the drugs have to play a bigger role.
Drugs are bad.
Oh,
Okay.
Do you want me to throw this in? The coroner's report.
Dun, 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 dun. Can you end it with dun, dun, dun?
Okay, I'll work on it. In the coroner's report, the water found in Brian Jones's lungs was not chlorinated. It was fresh water.
What? No way.
There is a theory that he was
that's
drowned in a trough somewhere on the property and then put in the pool.
Oh.
In a trough where there are horses.
Yes. In a horse trough.
He was drowned in the It was, yes. He was drowned in the horse trough.
No,
Horseplay.
wolf
Oh, the horses did do it. Horseplay.
Yes.
Yes.
Long you knew it.
Oh, no.
Mystery.
Yes.
It's a big
I've got a
mystery.
question which is not really related to this, but is
Sure.
how is it that if you're found at the bottom of the pool, they do find fresh water? How come there isn't any chlorinated water in there as well if you've drowned? I don't get that. Do your lungs seal off at some point?
Well, see, it's an
you're
interesting
dead.
question, and the reason not because you're dead. The reason I was looking at that particular facet of info is because if he'd had an asthma attack, the lungs close. He wouldn't have had any water in his lungs because he wouldn't have been able to aspirate because he wouldn't be able to breathe. So the whole thing
Is
about
that true?
it is.
If you have an asthma attack underwater,
Gasping.
do you die from asthma or do you die from drowning?
I don't know.
Or
But
do you
I
die
think
from
I think
misadventure? Or do you die from misadventure?
Well, from what I understand
Horseplay.
is that you
Horseplay.
can't breathe with an asthma attack. And so
Horseplay.
the fact that he asked for an asthma inhaler, allegedly asked for an asthma inhaler, which was not to be found anywhere, but then shows up on the side of the pool, suspicious.
Yeah.
Then he's
Yeah.
got fresh water in his glass. The whole
Yeah.
thing's
The
asthma's a red-
he's killed.
The asthma's a red
herring,
herring. The asthma's a red herring, I think. And Anna would know that being from Sweden, that red herrings are delicious. Especially if they're pickled.
Janet Lawson would have known one or two things about these things, being a nurse.
Yeah.
I would have thought so, yes.
My first thing, when we first started this...
You're not a fan of Janet, are you, Schmidty? She's let herself down professionally, and you want to see her pay for that at the very least.
It's not so much that. It's more just, if this were a normal crime story, Elmore's getting everyone did it. Who's the most
The nurse with the inhaler.
inconspicuous person that
story?
you would never
why do they
expect,
exist?
and why
They
they
turn out to be the murderer.
There we have it. It's Janet Lawson.
Yeah.
By the way, I think she's passed away, and I don't think she actually did murder him. I think
Do tell.
I'm a 50-50 between an ordinary old, drug-addled builder who just gets a bit pissed off and being Thorogood, and possibly, and he's a bit of a front runner, I think, for most people's theories on this.
And I don't, not even because he's alleged to have said he'd done it, but I think that obviously he had means, motive, and opportunity. So yeah, he's my number one.
But my other one is Keylock. Keylock's a dodgy fucker.
It's more realistic that Keylock, who was an ex-paratrooper, rumours that he'd been advised to get rid of Jones by the other band members, this idea of him orchestrating a group drowning.
And I think he was a bit of an early version of Harvey Keitel as the cleaner in Pulp Fiction. So he did it, and to incorporate Clarky's new punishments, and given the water connection, I'll go for Keylock needing to be taken to Brazil in the Amazon, go fishing, bop a log of bees. And for those of you who didn't listen to last week, or did, for those who didn't, to escape the angry bees, he jumps into a piranha-infested water and takes his own chances.
Nice. Cop that, fucker.
Take that, motherfucker. That's right. I reckon he's a shifty bastard.
To say the least.
Yes. He is very shifty. I would agree 100%.
But in a lot of the reading and stuff that you did they, how much of it went back to, the Rolling Stones, the band, whether they had any involvement from afar, like whether or not they were trying to get rid of him, or is that was dispelled quite quickly? Or
They sacked him, but there's no evidence.
No, I know that, but like in terms of like knocking him off.
No, there's no evidence that they were trying to knock him off. There were theories, and Keylock suggested that the band had told him to get rid of him, but he'd been encouraged to, deal with it with Brian. But no, there's no evidence that at all that the band had anything to do with
Because I get a bit
death.
confused when I think of Keylock, whether or not, who was he not responsible to, but, was, in whose pocket was he? The Rolling Stones management or the others or Brian? Like, it was possible that when Brian was part of the Rolling Stones 3 weeks earlier and was like the superstar, that he was, his yes man. But whose yes man was he ultimately? The others?
It's a good question, and I don't really know the answer because I haven't looked into enough. But I think the thing that would answer that is what happened to Keylock after. Like, how did he make his money? So if he stayed with the Rolling Stones and made his livelihood out of the Rolling Stones, that might suggest that his loyalties were with the band because that's where his money was coming from. But I'm not saying that either. And I'm not suggesting that the Rolling Stones had anything to do with Brian Jones' death.
Oh,
No.
I'm sure
but
they
it would
were
be way
alibi
more
out
interesting if
anyway.
they did.
Except that I kind of suggested it earlier when I was like, maybe the band members were there.
You don't want to fuck with the Rolling Stones. You know the Verve, that song Bittersweet
Yes.
Symphony, that they had
Yes.
sampled part of.
Yes.
They
I want to
took
fuck
that-
Yes.
with them because
No, they don't
clearly-
want to. They don't get a
No.
cent for any of that still.
I'm
Never will.
sorry.
Yeah.
Clearly, they've done a deal with the devil because they're so old and still going.
That's okay, though,
Yeah,
because they
maybe
also
you're
have
right.
sympathy for the devil, so,
They
Oh.
do. It's
See,
all
that's
there
really
in
quite
plain sight,
obvious.
isn't it? They're telling us.
Yes. True. Yeah.
I'm not going to suggest that the band had anything to do with it. It could have just been an accidental drowning.
I didn't really mean them. I was sort of talking generically about their management, but yeah, point.
We
So-
just don't know. It's just one of those mysteries that we can make up things, and I thought it'd be a good story for us.
It's an excellent story.
You've done
I think
well.
I would like to just explore the punishment a little bit more because that's what we love to do. So for everyone who was there and probably saw what happened, because I don't think it was like we started. Started with all those women just happened to leave minutes before he drowned, and no one happened to be there. Blah blah blah. I think that there were a lot of people who really did see what happened and just didn't tell the police what happened. And so those people should be punished by listening to the worst Rolling Stones song ever for substantial periods of time. So I did a quick Google search to find out what the worst Rolling Stones song ever was. It starts off, when I say it starts off, lyrics include, "You call yourself a Christian. I think that you're a hypocrite. You say you are a patriot. I Think That You're a Crock of Shit.
Oh.
So it sounds like quite a credible song anyway. So I'm going to play a little bit of it to you. It's called Sweet Neo Con. And this could actually be about this whole night, right, from what I'm hearing. But anyway, let's play it. I've never heard it before, so we're all going to listen to this for the first time, unless anyone's heard it before, in which case they're not going to listen to it for the first time. Are you ready? Quite catchy. Jesus.
That's like Peter Garrett.
Oh my god! Oh.
What? What a song. It's a piece of shit.
That
I'm gonna
deserves
stop
a
it
nut
there.
punch. That is so bad. Daddy, old man,
Deserve a
double nut punch.
Yeah.
Pensioner nut punch.
I think that yes, a pensioner nut punch.
So you'd be belting them down around about the knees.
Yes, you'd punch him in the knee area, and they would still end up in their throat at some point. Although probably more as a spot on the liver. So I think that listening to that song over and over and over again for hours every day would be excellent punishment for people who should have just said what the fuck happened.
Was that a fairly recent song? Maybe it was done was it?
No,
Really?
I don't.
I think it was
Think
like
so.
something that there was
no.
maybe at like evangelical Christians or something in the US, but God, it's horrendous.
Oh,
Find
let
out
me
when it's
see.
from.
Sweet Neo Con.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Oh no, released 2005. So one of their
my
more
God.
recent ones.
Balling. Imagine going to a concert and hearing perform that. Oh God.
God, I know.
Thanks. But no.
You'd so want to drown someone in. You'd want to drown someone in the pool. Maybe Brian Jones wrote that song and they drowned him because he wrote it, but then they released it later anyway.
Maybe.
Oh, you're right. That is quite the punishment. Oh, come on, Paul. You can't do that to someone. Like, a bee sting's bad. And piranhas, that's much more appropriate. Making someone listen to that is just, we're not monsters.
It's a much better way to go being eaten by piranhas,
we're
isn't
not,
it?
back it up. Oh, fuck me. That's kind compared to having to listen to this.
Sweet Neo Con. I mean,
Jesus.
what even is that name?
Oh my God. So did you Google that as the worst and that's what came up?
Yeah, totally. Yes. And I think that, welcome Google. Thank you, Google. I think you nailed it.
I think Google nailed it indeed.
You're a crawfish shit.
Carla,
Yes,
so
darling.
about your question earlier around Keylock's motivation and who was managing him, in 1971, he went his own way.
Yeah.
The Rolling Stones
Yeah.
basically said, we don't need you anymore.
Oh, right.
And obviously this happened in 69. 2 years
Yeah.
later.
Yes. Yeah, he'd fixed it.
Maybe
Thicker.
maybe the thing is that they went legit.
Thicker.
They were bad, and then they went legit in 1971. They said, let's just cut off ties with everything dirty. Yeah, and I'm making that up before anyone suggests otherwise. And
Schmidty, this is Trial by Wine. Of course, everything is made up. Apart from the fact that you actually used credible sources for this story.
Carla, did you
Okay.
sentence anyone, or did you just sort of talk about drugs and stuff?
I talked about, I don't like to do that bit. So no, I just talked about that. I thought that, no, I didn't sentence anybody is the short answer.
If you did sentence
Couple of
someone,
nut
who would you
Did you,
sentence?
did you accuse anyone? Did you even accuse anyone who just said they're all on
Kind
drugs?
of
And
the builder. The builder maybe.
well,
Bob,
look, that's
Bob the Builder.
Frank. That's a very strong theory. Yeah.
Yeah. The builder, if anybody. But again, I was looking for signs of violence and I just couldn't see that. So I just thought it was perhaps until you introduced the water or whatever else. So then maybe it was the horses that did it in the.
I've got to think.
All
If
three?
it was the horses, all three of us should maybe sentence the horses.
Oh,
No, you say horses
Jesus.
plural. How do you know it was more than one horse?
All right, let's just pick one
It was
horse. Then.
horse.
Let's just
Well, no, we know it was
one
only
horse.
one horse because it was horse play, not horses play.
You're right.
Yes. Well, right, you are.
One horse. We're going to sentence it to a one horse race
Thank God for your intuition.
with no finish line.
I could listen to that song.
Oh,
Have that song.
I
think-
Gone.
I'm going to send it to the knackers.
it's the nut punchery.
To the neckery.
In trial by wine sentence world, surely there's a nut punchery, which is one of the rides.
Oh, you mean our
You could s-
macabre theme
Yeah,
park?
theme park.
Trial
Yeah,
by
yeah.
wine theme park. Nut punch.
Trial by wine world.
Trial by wine
Nut-
world.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we don't have clowns. We just have a groin area that's got testicles on it. You punch at it.
Yes.
I do feel like we added a new attraction today with the kangaroos as sort of like a sideshow.
Yes. See, maybe it was kangaroo play, not horse play. I feel
Well,
like,
that's sort of adult only section, a little bit, you know. Oh,
George Thorogood should be punished to playing with horses for the rest of his life, but maybe like
So should
Brumby
his brother
style
Frank?
horses. Yeah, exactly right. But both of the
Is that who
Thorogoods.
George is?
Well, he's bad. He's bad to the bone.
Did you say
So
George?
I think they both should be punished to a good Brumby trampling.
Ooh.
Yes, I think that would be a good one too.
Thank you guys for listening to the story of Brian Jones. Until next week, I miss you already.
Oh, I miss you more.
Yeah. Say goodbye.
Close your-
And I'll miss you.
And I'll miss
And
you
I'll kiss you
tomorrow.
I'll kiss you. Remember to always be true.
Always
Yes,
be
isn't that-
true.
Hang on. No, you sang it.
And then
We sang it the wrong way round.
away.
Close your eyes
I'll
and I'll
ride
kiss
home
you.
every day.
Tomorrow I'll miss you.
And on that note,
Oh! That was heinous.
Well done. That's heinous.
all right. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you next week.
Mwah. Miss you already. Love you long time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website, www.trialbywine.com, to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.